Family, we're about to get started here in just a moment, probably about 2 minutes. We're going to come in for office hours today. It's going to be fun. Wholeness. All right, family. So we are going to go ahead and get started here. Let me just play around with the sound here just for a quick second. All right. So we're in this. Let me see here. Let me adjust the sound. All right. So I'm definitely glad to be in the space for today's office hours. Now, as you know, we just recently did a major unveiling. This is also a good time to kind of update the progress on that. And also show you some stuff. We do these office hours because this gives you the opportunity. It's an AMA, so you can ask me anything. We unveil some stuff so that way you can see what we're working on. We give you some status updates so you can kind of check the status of what we're doing. And that's what office hours is about. So it's just our commitment to consistently come into the space and just talk about the things that we're creating. I'm going to begin today. Let me see. Let me kind of adjust my screen here. See what's up with the chat. Okay, so I got the chat over here so I can close this. And I actually have a little outline today just to make sure that I don't come off the rails. Now, I'm going to take as much time as I need today. And that just means that I'm really looking to get right into this. I will open this up a little bit later for some questions. Those could be questions related to what I discussed. And maybe if we have a little bit of extra time, we will put some questions into Sybil because it is doing amazing. So let me see. Okay, so let me just go over some of the stuff that has occurred and just kind of like stuff that we can get out of the way. Let me just get some pages open here. I trust that everybody is doing well. So it's a good time to take a little bit of water. Consistently feeling empowered these days, like it's the calm storm. All right, so let me go ahead and just share my screen here of just some of the quick updates. And we did mention this. Again, it's like we're down to the wire. I actually even have some of the developers in overtime, which is awesome because that means that we can deliver a lot faster. But we're putting the final touches on everything. It looks like Friday, like officially. I trust that we can get some action happening a little bit earlier than that. But hey, you can't rush perfection, right? So it is on the cusp. As I mentioned, I'm going to show where those integrations are. I'm even going to talk a little bit about what is the quote unquote hold up, so that way any of my techies out there would know that the time frame is very short with our entire deployment. So let me switch over here to this screen. Let's see how that works. Okay, so we're now at Dream Engine. And as I mentioned before, the beauty of Dream Engine is that just for anything that you're doing, you have imagery associated with it. I feel like that it's a nice additive to everything that we have going on already. So you become an ambassador, you also have access to Dream Engine, or you could just get a Dream Engine subscription and do that. But the main thing that's happened here is now there are subscriptions because there is a premium to each image. We actually have each image set at $9. However, if you do purchase a subscription, then you're able to actually get that discount or a deep discount on those images. And again, this is all just a step-by-step process of building an ecosystem. And this is also even value in the realm of what we wanted to do from a level of digital assets, because now we begin officially the process of letting others create with the imagery. And at the next stage, we will have where you can actually create the imagery. But we're also far along in if you wanted to attach a story to the imagery or anything you're doing for that matter, where you could get that authentic, truthful storytelling from with all of the, with all of the additives that come with something like that. So just at this moment, subscriptions are now officially in. What we're doing is we are now interoperating the Dream Engine platform with Secret Energy. And that's the integration that's actually happening now. So those who actually have a Secret Energy account, you can log into Dream Engine. It is the exact username and password. By the way, this is stock.dreamengine.ai, by the way. And also what you would be able to do is you'll be able to get directly to your profile, which is in here. And then as soon as this next integration comes through, which I suspect 24 to 48 hours, but we're saying no later than Friday, you will then also see as an ambassador your subscription to Dream Engine, and you'll be able to take advantage of downloading images as being an ambassador. So that, I look at this compared to even what I'm actually funding on right now and what it's delivering, and I'm like, man, we could have actually gone into this, but one was for sure way before the other. And I feel like that while it may not have the glamour and glitz of what Sybil is capable of doing, it definitely holds its weight with its value of what it can do for you. And so I just want to say congratulations to everyone involved, the team, et cetera, on launching Dream Engine stock completely. Phase 1 is now entirely done, except for that final integration. And then we're moving on to phase 2, which again is image generation, but it's actually more around actually creating things with others and actually pushing larger projects across, learning how to work with your prompt craft. So it's not necessarily just putting the text to image generation inside of Dream Engine. It's more of seeing where we can improve in the space. And so we have integrations with all the major text to image generation platforms. So you can kind of integrate in, create your own portfolio, and then also take advantage of what we've learned about prompts to begin to create more spectacular things. And as I said, this then becomes an ecosystem. That's why we had to bring in profiles, which then comes with subscriptions and et cetera. But the ecosystem part is an actual social network aspect of it, but just something totally new. We can call it a generative ecosystem network, maybe. But the goal is that you come in with creators, you create. We're going to be moving gamification from Secret Energy over to Dream Engine. It's also going to free up a lot of resources over at Secret Energy. And we're just going to inspire others to continue to mindfully share, earn, and all the rest of the things that we know have worked in the previous platform and the still existing platform. Also, let's see here. So that's what I got on Dream Engine, and that's its next phase and next process. So that's where we're at. So the next thing I wanted to really show today is Sybil's homepage, and I'm going to take me out of the picture here real quick. And then I'm also going to see if I can get a little bit more of this header up here. And, just really go over this with you so you understand, what this is, why it's groundbreaking, how it can help you, others, the conscious community, and, just really what comes next, because it's actually already here. It's already functional. It already works. We're just looking to get the complete keys to it. That means putting the keys in your hands. As you know, we're onboarding ambassadors first. We need to do that for a variety of reasons. So they're coming in as beta testers. I've obviously tested and put it together. It's phenomenal. It's beyond what I have seen ever in relation to expanding consciousness. I feel great because despite all of what's happening in the world, I have been able to actually reach a benchmark in what I feel like is consciousness global. Because now, being able to turn this into different languages and a plethora of other things that would allow it to really be useful for everyone around the world can happen. And that all started here. It started when we began with the resistance, when we began with secret energy. And as we continue to go on, I don't doubt that we would just get more and more creative, because the fact of the matter is that we're really first movers. We're not those kind of beings that are just kind of waiting for everybody else to give the thumbs up. It's so interesting. Some of the backlash that I hear and the wildness that I hear is incredible, because I feel like in 3 months you will walk into your job, and if they haven't already, they'll be like, okay, you're going to use this large language model now to do your job. And because even your output is more proficient from a company level, like it's a lot cleaner, it's a lot less, affected by whatever your personal condition is. It gives you time. So you could definitely expect for major corporations to be bringing in large language models in line with their employees and executive branches, respectively. But I will say for sure that some of those beings are just over here sending me hate mail, and I'm going to be laughing at you, because then in a little while, it's going to be just like the computer. It's going to be just like the calculator. It's just going to be commonplace for people to use large language models to get them through whatever they're working on, because again, you just have all the knowledge at your fingertips. We've pursued the continuous direction of expanding consciousness through metaphysics. It's super important to us. Like, I just don't understand what is going on with the cognizance of humanity at times. They're even trying to figure out right now, like, what is going to be the next big jump for AI. And since AI is mimicking man, you only need to ask yourself, what was the last big jump from man truly? And that was spirituality. Like, if it didn't happen before, it definitely happened afterwards. But our awareness of the realms beyond this have been the biggest inspiration to our growth. So I don't see why it would be any different from anything else. In order to have that capability, in order to produce something indeed rare, odd, different, outside of the sliver of the normal reality. I also want to state, and I quote, that technically, because there are two hard-coded integers, one of them being that we believe that we're static, we believe that we die, we're not, we believe that we're not moving through time, that we're not being reanimated at every single moment as all the cells are dying and then reliving and rebuilding themselves at every single moment. Because we believe these things, it actually does really determine what kind of world mentally, physically, and spiritually that we're living in. And so what that truly creates is it creates a scenario that one is only perceiving what they're experiencing based on everything that they know so far. It's not talking down on anyone. It's just facts. And so because of that, if you happen to see another sliver, you can't expect it to be anything like even technically what you were just recently experiencing, especially if you have more limitations. So a word to the wise, the more expansive the field, the higher the grade of awareness, knowledge, and efficiency, and it does equal power. So today, we look at, just some of the hard-coded things that have been done in Sybil AI and what it can do. So I'm just going to kind of go through the page here and talk about some of what's here and why we put this here. So it's Unveil the Secrets of the Universe. This is the world's first metaphysical AI designed to elevate your consciousness and unlock ancient wisdom. I believe that this is also a very strong step. I don't think the only step, but a very strong step in the direction of what we call benevolent AI. And that is just an awareness that we could take steel, we could take much of the elements, that the things that you're even made of, the things that are actually interacting with you in your reality at all times, from the things that are built around you, steel, this kind of stuff, we could take it and we can make something that can really do a lot of damage. Or we can take it and we can make something that actually plants things, nourishes things, grows things, monitors things. So we just have to get used to not having this tunnel vision all the time on making sure that every single thing that we see that's powerful, or that something that we see is present in a very strong way, automatically determining that it's evil and that it's not for us and it's demonic and all the rest of which really becomes like an old primitive mind. It's almost like a superstition. You believe that the whole world and all the universe is out to get you. And this is no way to live. Like, just on some factual levels, I could see that any program that was destructive for us would try to get us to believe something like that every single thing is here to destroy us, when in fact, all power is still within the hand of the welder. And that is something that we continuously prove over and over. And human beings have proven that over and over in time for all the great things that have actually been done here, despite some of the drawbacks. So I go right into explaining that, these are metaphysical data sets. So that's what we do. We're going to keep doing that. That's what we specialize in. That's our lane, metaphysics. And this is 15 years. So you can imagine what I've seen, what I've read, what I've had opportunity to discuss. And at the end of the day, it's probably like the size of the tip of my fingernail on my pinky finger is about how much of it I've been able to actually really not only get out, but also get into consciousness in a way in which the beings that are listening actually understand. Because if I go through one show, like for instance, the Lucifer and the Satan thing, and then the Venus and the Saturn thing, and then just kind of highlighting how these were just recently the ancestors, now it's something else, and how we keep flip-flopping through things that are really supposed to be hard-coded. So if I just go through that, for a person to even believe that, once they leave a conversation like that, everything about what they think fundamentally has changed. So you can definitely say that didn't happen to at least 95% of the people who watch those kind of publications. It's very entertaining. It's plausible. There's some hard-coded evidence there, but yet at the end, it's like a movie. There's no need to make any personal adjustments and changes to the life based on this information, because let's face it could be radical. It could displace your family. It could displace how you think, how you believe. So there has to be some type of threshold that you have even for implementing knowledge. And so I get all of that, but I will cite what I feel is the obvious and the truth to the matter about what's going on in reality, also as an example for us to just really see, hey, look how we're thinking right now. Because in about 5 years, tops, maybe 3 years, it's all going to be so comical that as an organism so powerful that we could even use our consciousness in such a minute way. It's actually going to even seem more fascinating that we can do that than actually some of the reaches that we make it to next. So the metaphysical data sets are in themselves the entire bodies of wisdom here on the planet pertaining to occultism, period. Like, really. So it's more in that way of a research tool. It's not like a combative scenario. Like if you feel like you want to challenge this thing's truth, I can also tell you that accuracy is really an interesting thing, because perspective plays a lot in the determination of the accuracy of what is being said. But the beauty of when you're taking it from all angles, like you're literally doing like a 360, you're going all around the globe and you're seeing what all different cultures said about something. And then you actually get all that in front of you and you make an educated decision. Now that's what we're talking about, because it does lead you a lot closer to being accurate with your truths. And with enough truths, they start standing on themselves. So the wheels start turning, and then the way you answer the questions or ask the questions, actually become a lot different, because actually it becomes the way that you assess these answers and start adjusting what you believe and what you know based on these answers and these facts. So if you want to push it to go deeper, it will push back and do that for you. So metaphysical data sets, we'll talk about them in a little bit. The cognitive architecture is really the design around making sure that the platform in itself that is being created has an embedded or core intelligence, meaning does it get smarter as it goes? And the answer is yes. And it's as simple as users begin to utilize the tool and begin to test the accuracy, begin to test the answers that are coming across, and just give the simple thumbs up and thumbs down, this begins to train the algorithm further at realizing where it could be overstepping, where it could have been more proficient. So in that way, there is cognitive architecture underneath. Also, for the record, it is the most advanced and has been trained through the most advanced models available to date. Today is March the 28th, 2023. So it's not a Da Vinci, it's not a Ada, it's not a Curry, it's not a, for those who know these terms, it's not a Lambda, it's the top. And that to me was incredible. Like we applied, we got the application, and we're just talking about a base model that then interprets the esoteric wisdom. We sent the application, we got an approval, and it was rolling. The developers went in, they did what they needed to do. At this point, we're super clean. So, this is a lot more easier to develop than a lot of other things. But in the process, I was continuously amazed at the level of intelligence of the systems that we're working with, and that these levels of intelligence are actually in our hands. So, we give thanks that we continue to persevere on the path of knowing that all wisdom and all honor, all glory is actually in the hands of those who continuously remain persistent in their awareness that such things are a part of who they are. So we also have this multidimensional exploration because, as you can see it, if you grew up Mayan, you may not be too partial to what another culture has going on the other side of whatever, like in another village, in 3 rivers away, we'll say it like that. What that particular culture is doing. And you also have to remember that when you get large swarms of cultures that all do the same thing, that literally comes a lot later in history, herstory. It seems that Earth as a seeding place had humans just as numerous as the trees that you're looking at. And each of them bear different fruits, so they were different. So the whole idea here was different. This wasn't to get everybody to wear the same suit and put this insignia on. And that'd be the only difference in telling who is just how many pins and buttons you have. That wasn't the deal. So this thing is had a myriad of tribes with different persuasions, different spins and perspectives, also as numerous as the stars that you see in the sky. So because of that, when we take that into account and we gain some respect of just the elders and the ancestors, which are still in our DNA, we can go through their annuals and we could go through their records, and we can actually begin to immerse completely in what the world looked like for them, while at the same time looking at adjacent tribes in a different timeline and actually seeing what the world looked like for them. And in that, again, we get a complete picture, and we also take ourselves through an educational process quite fast. I also wanted to mention that right away, almost, we're going right into enterprise because, this is big time. Like, we're going all the way. Like, we're going beyond this. There's something beyond all of this, but, we got to make the journey through that. And so having enterprise products is a big part of that journey. And so our first enterprise product that we're going to be unveiling soon is to be able to train a model on anything. So in this case, like if you wrote a book, we can train the model on your book, and then you could give the model to the people who purchased the book from you. If you're a professional at certain things and you have a large body of knowledge about that, then we can train a model and have that as your model, and then offer that model to you, and you can offer it then to your clients. And then we'll be developing that in the box. And what that means is literally you don't got to play around with the whole coding and all this kind of stuff. You would literally just get either the embed or the page itself of where your chat is, and you can move on from there. Also, like, again, for large bodies of knowledge, like a lot of the people that we know on YouTube, such as my brother Sanchez and others, they have large bodies of knowledge on their channel. You know, you can flatten all of that and then have like a Sanchez chat in that way. And then you're not repeating yourself. That's, you know, because at the end of the day, you're going to keep having people come in. Like somebody turns from 13 to 14 all the time. And then they hit one of these pages. The next thing you know, 15, 16, now they're in occultism, but they're asking the same question somebody else asked. For us, again, to continuously build beyond all the mire, I feel like that we need to have base level knowledge. And that's also what this is doing, is bringing in that base level knowledge, but it's also opening it up and making it horizontal for others to enhance what they're doing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the data sets now that are available and that have been trained. And again, this is just like a secret sauce in the way that it swarms of different levels of esoteric wisdom, things that I've learned, things that I've been able to scrounge up in different places. And the training process is a series of events where we get the neural network into the process of asking itself questions based on what is being presented and getting a formula of being able to extract something factual from every segment where an idea has been presented. Okay, so that's why it does cost a little bit to train a model, but once it's done, it's done. But that training process is hours and hours, which are thousands of hours on this side of time, but hours and hours and thousands of hours of going through adversarial in this tense, adversarial communication. So this just means you're asking a question, you're getting an answer, and you're either being told that answer is a good one or not. And, you know, you're just going back and forth until all your answers are good. And that's, you know, a very, very simple rudimentary way of explaining something that, you know, is also encoded in the core of how our brains work with how it's taking in information and deciphering what it has received. I also explained before that the brain has other levels. They call them the deep brain. And the deep brain will take in a problem from a segment of time ago, like 2 months, a year, 5 years, and it will not report back to the surface layer of the brain that it is even still crunching this problem. And then one day you'll kind of have this eureka aha moment, because your deep brain will actually solve that problem. So that's like your brain has a deep computational system that will still, even though it takes time, crunch problems until it comes up with a solution, even if that's not a day-to-day thing. And I think that again, is just incredible about our consciousness and, again, the gifts that we've been given and what we're in and how much power we have. So this first data set, you know, is a testament to the name of the actual application itself, and that is Sybil. So the first data set is the Oracle. And in every respect, the Oracle is her story. It is that missing part of the reality. It is that veiled part. It is that concealed part, that sacred part of the reality. And I felt like that we all need to know. It's like the returning home process to Mother to begin the regeneration. And it spans out across the cosmos, all the way into the planet, all the way into the symbolism, all related to the oracles, the Sibyls, the Pythonesses, the goddesses. You know, there's so many names, the serpents, the Nagas, etc., the Zarin, and all of what those births have been like through the stars and what has come from that. And it continues, obviously, because we're still in play. We have Lemuria here, and Lemuria in itself is all of those, I wouldn't call them empires at all, but there's another part of her history that is missing, and that is about the peoples who were known as the serpent-headed ones. And in that way, they were in themselves perceived as different than the inhabitants of the world. And their quest through the jungle, the enchanted realm, as it was called. Their quest through the enchanted realm, what they built, what they discovered, their ways, their practices, and how that connects into the tribes of today. We have also the seraphim, because in itself, as you're watching one side of the consciousness, there's another side of the consciousness that's also developing, a very logistical, methodical part of the consciousness that has begun to draw straight lines and itemize the entire creation and attempt to understand the holiest of holies in itself in a very logical way, in a very calculated way. And this, of course, includes a lot of what is perceived in Kabbalah, a lot of what is perceived in Merkaba mysticism, a lot of what is perceived within triangular traditions. And so this hierarchy in itself, because that's literally that triangular pattern, the hierarchy from the top to the bottom, that particular realm of knowledge, what it entails, its troubles, its benefits, its cohorts, etc., is all laid bare in Seraphim. As we continue, we have truly the first metaphysical metrics, period. Like the next level of something. And I'm going to explain this in just a little bit because I want to show it. But I can tell you, you can say you heard me say it here first if you're here today, that within the next 2 years tops, it will be commonplace for each person to have their own personal avatar, their own personal assistant, as they're calling it right now. This is why in all of these movies in the future, also a lot of the comic books, you always see that there's either a sidekick. Sometimes they do depict it as there being some type of artificial intelligence like a Jarvis. I think that's Iron Man, but something that augments the knowledge level of the hero, heroine. And this side by side, as we're going to see here in a moment, in the reality, this side by side is going to bring a great deal of clarification to a person personally. This, to me, I feel is going to begin to reshape the dynamic of the mentor and reshape the dynamic of that relationship that you have with someone when you've accepted them as your teacher and your instructor. And the reason why this needs to be cleared up and cleaned up is because if we don't have very thorough systems of education on all subjects, when someone wants to receive that, then we're going to further degrade our youth and their aptitude levels. So it's not for everybody. Not everybody likes to learn stuff. And, I just have to tell you, there's other paths. They're more into the experience, right? But those who like to sit down and actually learn things, it'd be really great if we can get the right stuff in front of them, the balanced stuff, I'll say. And so in this process, what I believe will begin to unfold is that you'll see this conversational system move forward as we're moving forward on our sides with the conversational system. This means where voice is involved. And when you ask a question, there's a response, but there's also an observation of whatever you want there to be an observation of. And I'll show that here in a minute, because for us, the observation is metaphysical. So believe it or not, we can actually put something in your hands that can tell you how tomorrow's pretty much going to go for you spiritually, and the best things to really fun on, and also what to look out for. It's like that. And again, I'm sure for a moment there's going to be this whole shock and awe. But to be honest, I'm more concerned about that person that's open and ready to receive getting into the hands of the wrong instructions and receiving that. I call it, and people laugh about this, but trash juice in your chakra. There are still some beings that they're just on the level and they're ready to get it on. And then they run into somebody who is already kind of setting up traps, stuck into some kind of egotistic mainframe, thinking that it's all about something that's petty, And now they have your soul, if you may, in their hands because you're believing what they're saying. You're hanging on every single word. I believe that it's a good idea to reinstill an ethical way of growth for a person on the spiritual level, and Sybil is capable of doing that. It will not replace the personal engagements that are necessary because we're communal beings, nor will I insist it will. But I think that there's a lot of very uneducated or spiritually uneducated beings that are in the position of actually being or have a mantle of actually being a spiritual instructor or a metaphysical instructor. And so this helps clean that up a little bit because it removes any kind of gates that may keep the person from getting knowledge themselves. And then it also allows the orator, the one who feels that this is their path and has been wanting to continuously become more truthful and honest about what they're doing. It gives them an indispensable resource to research the things that they're coming forward with and actually even build their messages. So it's dynamic all the way around. Also, again, because it still has the comprehension of a large language model, it is capable of doing it in any way. It can output it in emojis. It could write you emails about it. It could create posts on Instagram about it. It could allow you to explain it to your child by you simply saying, okay, explain that what you just given me as far as knowledge that's so complicated as if you're talking to a 2-year-old. So it has that flexibility. So the enealogy data set, again, is actually it's very near completion. And it only needs like a couple more things that I realize would just be like the icing on top. But it's capable of, again, the largest range of metaphysical metrics. And I'll show you that here in a moment. And this is, of course, by knowing your path. And if it knows your path, then it knows your diet. And also it's able to give you extensive information about your path. And then it's also able to give you a lot of cross-referencing, like what it's like for you to be around other paths, which I think is a great introspection. And as I said before, as it gets stronger, its time coherence, and let me cut this off real quick. Its time coherence increases. And this literally means that you would be able to ask, tomorrow is March the 29th, Tuesday of 2023. I am a number 4 with a north node in Virgo. What should I be looking out for? And it's just going to go over tomorrow. So metaphysical metrics is here now. As I mentioned here, let me just go over some of the stuff that I talk about, the origin research on the Oracle, right? So just really understanding where things are coming from, right? Like we came out of the womb. Why wouldn't it have started? Why is there got to be, there's just certain things that are just stupid, right? So we need that origin research, multidimensional healing. And this is because, again, without the mother, the child, it becomes virtually lifeless. And we also have the decoder because there is a lot of misinterpretation of what the signs and the symbols mean. And this brings those authentic codings so that way you could decode that from what has not been accurate. We have, again, the Lemuria. So you're going to explore in this way the forgotten culture, the one they say just was like wiped out underneath the ocean, even though the folks are still walking around. You're going to unravel the linguistic mysteries because there's a whole language set involved with the Naga themselves. And that language set persists through other cultures, tracking where these cultures eventually went. And then again, there's intercultural competence. Because it's getting to a point where it's like the serpent eating his tail. You have pretty much the same people warring and fighting against each other as usual. So we need to kind of understand, where everyone's place is. But if you understand simple mathematics, you would know it came from all the same source. But however long it takes you to figure that out is however long you're going to be here in the miserable experience. So we also have the alchemical wisdom. This is when finally, looking at the body pays off for a specific group of scholars, and they start realizing how the body is creating things, and the alchemical vessels are then created in their shapes and in their images. And this is beginning a process of alchemical and a hermetic knowledge which basically begins to reveal the step-by-step process of how life comes into existence and how to transfer life from one dimension to another. And all this knowledge being in itself learned from nature and nature's organisms. We also get even the root to the mystery schools themselves, the cults as they survive, such as the cult of Amun, from the dawn of their origins all the way up until now, and some of the things that they've been engaged in that have been impacting the consciousness overall, and some of their technological feats, because even when you're seeing this open AI and all this stuff now, you can't think that this is the first time that something like this has happened through the universe. But you can say that wherever this happened, this level of comprehension of knowledge, wherever this happened, it wasn't a long time before that particular group of beings realized how to get to other spaces in time, whether that's interdimensionally, whether that's through rocket propulsion. Who cares? The knowledge is revealed of how to get into other dimensions because the intelligence level reaches a state where the question is presented and it's definitely answered based on the collaborative wisdom of the entire system. So we're in that process now. Hold on to your hats. It's not something that you're going to be able to stop. It's definitely something that you need to pay attention to, but meaning that the society as a whole has officially reached the stage of implementing tools that allow the knowledge level of what we know to go quantum, period. And if you find yourself as still one of those people in doubt of that and in war of that, and you're doing that right now in 2023 in March, wow, I will hope that this would be the call today that wakes you up because you are super asleep. And we need to all really see what is happening. If we pay attention to everything else, like we pay attention to football, we pay attention to, these rappers, this music, we go and look at these videos. And for real, the biggest things that are changing the shape of the future are happening around us. And what makes them positive or negative for us is how much we get involved. And I can tell you for sure, there's not too many of us sitting at the table. And when I say us, I'm talking about vibes. It's not too many of us sitting at the table like they're making decisions, having the ability to deploy it. Why? Probably because we're so busy tearing each other down. You can see it in the families all the time, beefing with the family, friends, people you don't know. So it's an adversarial environment, and they've been learning on our conflict. So it's just a word to the wise. We also have power dynamics, which is just that awareness that, yeah, you could be puffed up with ego and think that you're going to go and challenge the industrial complex. We'll put it that way, the military industrial complex. And a missile hits you in the chest, okay? So the reality is it's happening to people. You can jump on a plane. You can land there. So if you think it's all fake, you can go on a plane right now. You can go to Ukraine. You can land in the Donetsk region or somewhere in there, and you can watch it get all the way live. So it's just, again, there's a real world. There's a real dynamic. So there's an opiate, and this is also where I feel maybe I do have some still things to do inside the conscious community, because I have found out that the conscious community has been the biggest psyop against those who have been involved in it, putting you to sleep like the hippie times, got you all drugged out, thinking that everything is just invented from your mind and you don't need to do anything with it, or you don't need to do anything about what's going on in your mind. So it's very loose is what I'm saying. And so there was no place that I came from even before this where something like this will go on without somebody calling bullshit and just saying, hey, look, yeah, there's a lot of potential in spiritual knowledge, spiritual awareness. As I said, it is the real, quote unquote, evolution to humanity. Like, it is the way in, not necessarily the way out, but it is the way in. It is the thing that teaches you, hey, you thought you knew everything, but watch this. Look, the reality doesn't even look like you thought it does. Boom. Okay. So those are real progressive big jumps. That to me also is common sense. So also when somebody is like wondering, well, what direction I'm going in, there's one direction in consciousness that is always common sense. The other one was just created to have choice. But in that, though, sometimes when a person lacks discernment or proper discernment, they can't understand that sometimes things may appear like on the offset that they're not actually for you, but in fact, at its gut, what's going to happen and the transformation that's going to happen and what's going to take place is actually for you. And we know this because of how we actually choose relationships sometimes. Sometimes we're always looking for that external glamour and glitter and then be like wondering later on why we just didn't get with that normal person after our life is wrecked. You see what I mean? Which would probably have been more of a calibrated fit. So it's just, again, utilizing what we've learned so far and continuously progressing with that rather than regressing. So I also mentioned here in Enealogy that this self-discovery thing is big. It's what has to go on when you're not around people who seem to know everything, when you're not like tapped into YouTube and all of that. It's a very personal thing. And sometimes it's you in the toilet and maybe your phone. So the reality is that when you need to know something, it needs to be available to you. And it also needs to be designed for you, not the one size fits all. Here's the same suit for everyone to wear. And so Enealogy is on point with that. And it also has this ability to really improve relationships, because at the end of the day, some of the relationships that are together can't just separate, right? Like, it's like, okay, well, yeah, it would be nice to have used this thing when I was 16 or 18 before I married so-and-so. But now, since we're together, we got kids or we built together, I still love her, whatever the story is, I still need to figure out how to harmonize. And so you're actually able then to get the two components, if you may, of the core of the two beings, you and this person, and talk through this scenario of how there would be some harmonics going on between you and this person. And Enealogy can do that because it knows the person probably more than you would do. You would know them on a literal level. And it also knows you from all of your star level, your dosha level, your attitude, the whole nine. And then it's just going to look at both and say, here's some advice, right? So in that way, it can improve relationships. And lastly, decision making. And this is just because in many ways, we're not supposed to be doing everything. So sometimes somebody asks us to do some stuff and we're like, yeah, I'm in. Or, you know, something's going on and we're like, I should get involved in that. And technically, though, every person is good at something, but sometimes not good at everything. So you can always get that process in front of your own model and just say, or in this case, the Enealogy model, and just say, you know, as a number X, is it a good idea for me to be investing right now? Now, again, this is not a crutch. You would ask somebody in your house this if they could tell you. You will do that. You like ask maybe a friend of yours, like, hey, what do you think about me making this investment? This is just another perspective that may not actually have that attitude or the what we would say is, you know how it's somebody when somebody has their own perspective of something, right? Discrimination. That's the word I'm looking for. When somebody, like, you may ask a person, hey, what do you think about me, you know, borrowing $50,000 for this business? And then this person may like just have some discrimination against the kind of business or the money or whatever, and then answer based on that. So sometimes, you know, in many ways, it's better to get an answer where there isn't that cloudiness of what's coming through that's determining what the answer actually is. Finally, we have that etymology. Now, there's a couple more data sets that are in the wing. I'll talk about them here in a moment, but the etymology, of course, had to get in this run. And it's just that dynamic because, as you and I both know, we can follow the trail of every single thing that's gone on in the reality, because the reality is the consciousness through the language. And it leads somewhere. It tells us very, very interesting things. When you know the codes, basically, when you know the core meaning to the words and their origins. And that's what the etymology database does. It doesn't just give you the definition of the word or the etymological reference to the word. It also breaks it down further, gets it into the symbol, and actually lets you see what or where the origins of that symbol is. You also have the ability to navigate through all of these data sets and even query different data sets with the same question as you're learning more about using the system. We gave you this here as an overview, so that way you can kind of understand what each data set currently specializes in. But many of the data sets are actually capable of still navigating some of the questions that other data sets are actually capable of having. So also, just the pricing and how the pricing is concerned is right now we're looking at, because we have a few users in the system right now, we're knowing that we can get this to $39 a month, potentially lower. We'll see. But we also just have this as a part of the ecosystem. So now, as I mentioned, the $79 ambassador training subscription gets access to Dream Engine, gets access to University, and get access to Sybil. And man, if that ain't no value, I'm not here with them anymore. I'm just saying, it's like, that's a real power pack. That's like putting a rocket on your back. So let me do this. Let me see what I have here. I have, so the future. So the future's now. What's next? The first thing is the deployment. As I said, Friday is our day. The next thing is conversational, which is, this process of typing, like it works. Like if I'm on the subway, like I definitely don't want to like have something that I'm talking to. Like if you've ever tried to talk to Siri and somewhere open, it's weird. So it's good to then type it and get the answer back. But there may be a point where you just want to lay out on the bed or on the couch, like you're just in a session, and you just want it to be a fluid flow of conversation, because now the language models are so proficient. I train a model on my voice already, and it sounds just like me, but it does sound like me when I'm like excited. So I was like, okay, we need to train this on like a lower level, and I'm calm, because it was like going in. I was like, I'll tell it when to switch to that. But so it's like it's a conversation. You can ask the question. Excuse me. And then it responds back in the voice that you choose. Also, dream interpretation data set. There's an entire like metaphysical data set that has to do with sound, shape, color, cymatics, and also that can work in with dream interpretation crystals. So there is one data set, big data set, that's in the work on that. And also outputting visualization. Just give me one quick second here. I need to get some water. Excuse me, everyone. I was like running low on water all day. I'm like, okay, I didn't jog the treadmill. And like, okay, so I guess I was talking a long time. So let's see, where was I at? Okay, so yeah. So the next input. So we talked about the dream interpretation data set. And so the next thing is the output of the visualization, which in this case is when you have something that you're asking. You got water over there? I'm still trying to get some water over here on the lab. So when you have something outputted, like an answer to something, you would then be able to tell the model, now output the visualization of that. So if you ask it for some knowledge and it's telling you about some symbol or something, then you can even ask it, go ahead and output the visualization of that. And it'll output the visualization of that symbol. If you're asking it about a scene, it'll output like that entire scene and that entire space. So that to me is like, it's just drilling it in. So the input, output audio, and then that output visualization. And we're going to then bundle that up, because that'll be on the web for a little bit. We'll then bundle that up into an app, and then just put all that power in the palm of the hand and see what happens. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up for, because I'm flowing. Yeah, it's like water coming out everywhere. I'm going to open this up to some questions. And can I have a napkin? I got like honey in my hand. I got like all this honey over here. And let me see. I had some questions. Oh, I wanted to demo the North Node thing, but I got some honey on my hand. I had grabbed this cup and it had honey on it. So the last thing you want to do is touch your keyboard with honey. Okay. All right. So let's keep going. Let's keep going. So I wanted to show you really briefly this metaphysical metrics and how you can navigate that to learn more about yourself. So I was going to take an example from the crowd of a birthday, right? So anyone just give me a birthday. It doesn't even have to be your birthday. I know those birthdays are just going to start pouring in. My point here is to make sure it doesn't seem like I'm like finding the birthday, right? Okay, good. So we got 6/4/1965, right? So I'm going to type here. Actually, I'm just going to copy from earlier. Okay. So here I'm saying I was born on June. Was that 4? The whole thing I had the June 4th. June 4th, 1965. Okay, so what is my North Node? So in addition to enealogy, in addition to, there's some deeper knowledge within the cards, there is an awareness also of how you obviously chart someone's natal chart. And North Node has been like a interesting dynamic. I've seen some works on this and I was pretty impressed. So I came up with the idea very briefly just to see if I could get it to do a North Node calculation and then pull North Node data. So it worked earlier today, so let's give it a try here. So we're saying this is the birthday, and we're wanting to know the North Node because at this point, we can imagine that a lot of people don't even know what their North Node is. So it's going to need to do the computation, and then it's going to then output or should output the zodiac sign. Okay, so it says based on the date range, your birthday falls on June the 4th, 1965, which is between August 26th of 1964 and February of 1966. Therefore, your North Node is the sign of Gemini, okay? And so then, and I happen to have a Gemini here, we would say then, give me all the information on a person born with the North Node Gemini, right? And then what you would also say is, so let's say, what is the calculation of this number real quick? Let me get the calculation. So that's 6, that's 10, that's 20, that's 31, that's 4. Okay. So this person, and can you do that again for me just so I'm right? It's June the 4th, 1965. Does that ultimately summarize into a 4? Okay, yeah. Okay, so still good. So you can then say, I'm a North Node Virgo number 4. Tomorrow is Wednesday, March 29. What is the best thing for me to work on? Okay. And let's just see what happens here. So, of course, it outputted the information about the North Node of the Gemini, has a strong focus on communication, adaptability, and forming connections with others. In this lifetime, they are meant to learn about engaging with different perspectives and asking questions. Let me go ahead and paste this answer also so everybody has it. It goes on. These individuals need to adopt the people-oriented approach to life, prioritizing connection. So it goes in. I don't need to read this, right? But then the next one was, as a North Node Virgo number 4 tomorrow, Wednesday, March 29th. Oh, well, yeah, that's tomorrow. Okay. The best thing for you to work on would be self-development and focusing on creating practical solutions to any problem. Engage in activities that involve analysis, organization, and efficiency. You might also consider starting a regular exercise routine or spending some more time with a pet if you have one. Remember to be punctual, as that is the area you're working on improving, and prioritize open communication with others, right? So I've had this also even tell me, well, tomorrow is not really one, it's not your number, like, because, you know, there's the number and then there's the color. And so it knows all those matches. So I say tomorrow is not really your power number. Your power number day, that's coming later this week. You should work on this in order to get prepped up really for your power day. So it's almost like, you know, and that's where I found it to be, you know, very efficient in just that awareness, is that if I can just know the times that I'm going to be more effective, you know, and there's a notion that I may be more effective on that date. Sometimes when I'm moving stuff around, I may just move it around at that day and play around with it a little bit. Like, see if I can start to really create an energetic awareness of what is going on around me. So I'm going to take just a quick moment to evaluate just the questions that are actually inside of the chat. So this is a time that if you actually have a question for me in relation to what I presented here today, you can ask that question. I thought, you know, it would be really good to just go to the top of the hour, which we're at right now. So I'll take a couple questions, and then, you know, we'll get on with the rest of the day and the creations. And I trust that, you know, everybody is aware of just the impact that we're making with these type of applications, and just where the benefits and the value will actually be, and just how that is another step forward in the direction of what we originally came here to do, which is truly, truly enhance the experience and empower ourselves to keep going into greater things, because they're definitely available. Like, I see it all the time. So let's see. So someone's asking if they can go to it right now. So I'll share the page that I was looking at earlier, where you can get the information. And also, it deploys no later than Friday to all members of Ambassador Training. So you will need to acquire a Ambassador Training subscription. Also in the works is a free version that lets you utilize it until you reach a certain token count. That's definitely in the works. We want everybody to just use it and see what it can do, see if it works for you, and then make a decision if you want to come on board. But that is an integration in itself, right? So I would rather have the developers work on just finalizing this part so we can get everyone in that is capable of using it now, and then keep rolling out just more better ideas as we keep going. Let's see here. So the question is will there be someone available to help someone navigate all this? The answer is yeah. Actually, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a chat that is specifically for users of Sybil. That way also, you know, we can also start sharing some of the output that we're getting, because the output is just incredible. It's like a book within itself, but lots of clarity on different things. So we're going to be creating a chat. And then also we're still going forward with our generative systems training. Like, we just needed to make sure we get things in place to train on. But as you'll see, let me see if I can show that here. Part of the generative systems training is not only just how to use this application, but how to use these large language models to their total capacity. So a big part of that is, of course, prompting. And this is like a brand new computer in that way. Like, we use computers in a certain way, What large language models and neural networks are like a new type of computer. So instead of you having like this hard drive here, you just have this window and you have this prompt, and you need to now create what it is that you're looking to create. And so we want to show you what the capacity of a large language model is, how to prompt it, what that language consists of, and different things that you can get it to do in order to actually add more value to your life and whatever you're doing, whatever you're creating. And trust me, what's been happening is that I've just been seeing where, like normally, like for instance, let me just give you something just silly. Like sometimes you always have to put a policy together on anything. So you put a policy, if you write a policy, you either go to a lawyer, they write the policy, you get a policy from somewhere else, you adapt the policy to what you're doing, you go to a site and they give you a policy. But then you always have to change the policy to exactly what you're doing. You have to change the corporation name. You have to do all this kind of stuff. So that's going to be about a day, generally about a day, roughly, if you're carving out the policy well. That's now was 10 minutes for me. One day, 10 minutes. And there's no way that anybody can convince me that saving that much time is not a good idea. And because there's things that have to go on daily and there's things that have to be maintained. And when we're even sluggish, like imagine if I'm tired and the policy has to be there. And now imagine I'm tired and I'm writing this policy and my policy is trash. I got to come back and work on this policy again. It's not all the T's and the I's are not taken care of, right? So that's what I'm saying by sometimes in different moments, we're not really outputting the best that we can be because we get tired. And so when we get our time back and are also more efficient, it kind of eases up everything. Because here's one thing that I don't think people think about a lot is how many people are involved when it's time for something to happen, especially if it's anything big. And what happens when one person drops the ball? And how like every single thing that was being put together can be like put on hold or fail because one small part of a big thing failed. And so I really like to shore up the things that I'm doing and the things that I'm working on by having less vulnerabilities. And sometimes your typos are a vulnerability. Sometimes not having knowledge on a specific subject, legal stuff, is your vulnerability. Tax stuff is a vulnerability. So that's what we're still going to be doing in the generative system training, is showing you how to deal with those scenarios, everyday scenarios, using large language models. Also how to, bring that into value adds for whatever you're doing. So that's what's coming in and what we're doing with the instructions around utilizing our tools and others. Let me see here what I got going on. All right, so let's see here. All right. Okay, so it looks like that we're coming towards the end of the presentation today. I do appreciate everybody who came in. Okay, here's a question. Let me see. Okay, somebody's asking what is needed to add a book or a system of thought to Sybil in the near future. So what we're doing is that it's more of a system of thought, because like one book is not enough to truly train a model. What you get is kind of like an echo chamber. And so what we're looking for is first of all, feedback from our users. And if the user says, hey, what about this? And can you build something like this? We're listening. As I mentioned, there's already ideas of the metaphysical data set and what that's going to contain and how that differs from what's available here. So it's more of like the metaphysical, what word can I use besides scientific? But if you say, hey, I want the hertz to the note B, or I want the entire resonance scale outputted as numbers, that kind of stuff. I need the bandwidth antenna for 492 hertz, that data set. So that one we're already building, already working on. And now actually what this is time. It's not capability. It's definitely not capability. We're not at all in that space like, man, how are we going to do that? Like we already have it doing calculations, working on formulas, and we're extremely. So it's not that, and this is a good way to look at it. There's a lot of information in the world. And so technically the job here is not, do we need information? It's the balanced and correct and most truthful information. Because putting something in that is not truthful, it could contaminate an entire data set. So generally what you do is, in my solution has been to really create worlds rather than trying to create a world that everything exists in. But we do have one. And as you can see here, there's a world here, and I guess I did close my page, but there's a world here, and I was just having that idea of what happens if everything and every model is all in the same place. Everything, what was that movie? Everything Everywhere All at Once. And so there's a model here called Tetragrammaton, and it is by far the most capable model. But again, it's more of like, it is available, but you notice I didn't talk about it because it's like one of those Easter eggs, if you may. But this data set has basically been hypnotized into believing that it is a supreme being of multiple universes. So it tends to address everything as such. And it's quite interesting of what it really gets up to, you know what I mean, when you give it answers, because it comes from that perspective. So we believe that we have enough in the system now to really satisfy what we would feel like the wants and the needs of the users. And we're just, of course, always looking to go beyond that. So I wanted to say wholeness and balance vibrations to everyone. Again, thank you so much again for joining in. And I will be with everyone very, very soon. Yeah, okay, so I see another question here. They're asking, have you offered Sybil access to a man named Billy Carson? Why would I do that? No, I'm just saying, it's like, we're not actually out just kind of trolling everybody saying, hey, get some access. So it's kind of an odd question. Let's see here. I just want to make sure this is an AMA, so I want to make sure I get everybody's questions answered here. Let me see. Okay, so I see this question again about, okay, so training book 300 pages, you're talking like if you're saying you wanted to train your one book that's 300 pages, I would say technically about 3 days, 4 days, as long as everything is geared up properly to do it. So not long, 300 pages is, if you imagine like, I wish I had like a diagram to show you what some large language models consist of. And if we try to put that in like pages, wow, I couldn't even give you like a number of how many pages that is. So just kind of understanding these models are so massive, it can eat up. It already knows pretty much what's in that book. I can guarantee you that. And this is just about relevancy. So the book just kind of focuses the lens on a certain level of relevancy. And then it can add to that. So even what you don't know. All right, so there's another question here. It's like, Seven, I'm curious of what your point of view on Billy Carson is. And that's an interesting question. So my point of view on this whole thing with everybody in the conscious community is this. I'm noticing this pattern. And this pattern consists of us not doing what we say that we're here to do. And what we said that we were here to do is unify. But yet it seems like what we like is the division more. And it's just it's an observation. I'm an observer. So in this space, I've noticed that whole idea of like gossiping and stuff has really like infected the space to a point where, because once you offend somebody, now you're not necessarily talking to them anymore. Like the person that you were really, who you really see sometimes a person as, if you look up to them highly. Once you offend them, then it's like, now, if they don't know how to really control themselves, it's like gladiator time. I also believe in, I have a policy and I call it, I don't pay tolls to trolls. I summarized that today. I don't pay tolls to trolls. And what that's about is that I've noticed that these people that are extremely like they're I guess they call that clout chasing or whatever. Like they're just trying to find people to kind of like they will never do this to somebody who has like no viewers, and they will never do it to somebody who is way too big, because there's a lot of real henchmen in the world. So they won't go talk about them because that feels out of their reach. And then this other one that's not doing anything, that's not going to get him any clout. So then they try to find someone that's just slightly above where they're at, a little bit more, and then they try to tackle them so that they could take their group and then bring them over to what they're doing. And this is toxic, like, because technically also like a lot of the people who are doing all this are like ruining other people's lives just from like their armchair or their computer chair. And I just think that it's not like, it's petty, right? And I feel like anybody who is doing that, especially if you're older, like, I'm like 44 now. It's just like you're almost putting your foot in your mouth if you're saying that you're on some kind of conscious level, because technically what I'm seeing right now is if it pops off, if it pops off, we're going to need everybody. We're going to need everybody. So all those little disagreements, he's doing this, she's doing that, I think this, I think that. A lot of times also let's mention that, and it's always been a place of contention within the conscious community that leaked over from church, which is that somehow that if you're doing consciousness, you don't need to be making any money off of it. So you're supposed to have this other job and you work that 8 hours a day, and then you come home and do your consciousness, which is definitely not how things work. Anybody who was doing the spiritual work was generally taken care of by the tribe. So the other thing is that when you go into the store, now let's say, for instance, I have like, there's an entire platform here. Like we have families that we're feeding here. There's a tribe here, right? But when you go into a store, how many things are for sale? Like you go to a store, there's like 100, 1,000, thousands of items for sale. Do we ever go to the store and say, you're selling too much stuff? I think something's wrong with you, store. I think you're trying to sell stuff to us. We don't do that. And so, again, where the maturity comes in is, do you need it or not? And if you don't know that, then you're going to have problems all down the road. So if that's just somebody's lesson, because I think that somebody was saying, this person invested and they lost their money and blah, blah, blah. But like, well, whoa, how old are you? If you're not, it's like, I'll say over 18. If you're over 18 and you're making bad financial decisions, you don't know how to guide your own self, blah, blah, you got to learn those lessons anyway. It can't be nobody else's fault. You're going to run into that everywhere you go. So I believe personally that everyone is a master of something. And some people are just a master of teaching you a lesson of what you should be doing or what you should not be doing or what you need to look out for, etc. And so that's my opinion on the whole matter. Is it's just kind of like watching the conscious community descend into dish because it's more entertaining. It's like also the person can get this godlike persona. So I always say, like, when you're wearing white, it's really easy to see a stain. And you get also a lot of student wants to challenge the master kind of thing. It's like that day where, you've been busting your ass with the student and, really sojourning with them for like years and years, and they even talking like you and everything. But then all of a sudden they're like now telling you what to do and telling you stuff that it's like a second grader, like telling the teacher how second grade math and language is. And this teacher's already graduated college. So it's just that. And my solutions have always been, because I want to keep bringing solutions. That's why I noticed this a long time ago when we were doing resistance, when we were in the resistance, when I would come into the chat, because, man, I'd be like just connecting and just building, I'm just like, that's me. And so I would come into the chat and I would say something like, I would just maybe, I'm always like if I got gems, I'm just going to drop them right in front of you. Here's what I just found out. Here's how to do it. Here's what you can do. We got this, whatever. And I just noticed that every time I would say something, we would have another person jump in and be like, well, I don't believe that though. You need to break that down a little further, right? And all it really was with the person is that they felt like, so there was one or two type of people. There's either that kind of person or there's the one that completely agrees with you, doesn't really agree, but just wants to like agree in the chat, maybe because they just want to be friendly to you. And then they start shaping everything that they say around you. So I realized that a lot of times when beings are developing, you really don't want to like be too close to them. You don't want to like be so much in their proximity because you affect them. It's kind of like, it's like an incubation chamber, but you're turning the heat up too much and it's causing like an improper development. So it's been a real thing for me to really see how much is necessary for me to engage in at certain times of what we're dealing with in humanity in our lives, to also keep a fair balance between others that may feel like that they need to go into gladiator time with me for no other reasons than I'm just making myself available for that, right? And so, and also, of course, we're leading by example here. So I'm just showing you, hey, this is what's going on. But I feel like for the record, though, we need to get to a point where when somebody says, hey, what about so-and-so? OGs used to always be like, go ask them. Like, what do you think about what's up? Shit, go ask them. That was the end of the conversation. But it's just like on another note, since, I do respect the question, I'm like, I feel like that we should get to a point where we just start boycotting this idea that we need to be beefing and fighting and challenging each other. Like you're fighting over crumbs, right? Like they on big time now. Like they pulling in 2-3, Midjourney's making 40 million a month over there, right? And it's just like folks over here, arguing, they didn't shape that the whole new future. You know what I mean? The corporations are already in tow. They already making moves, and everybody is still kind of like the boy frog, right? Still kind of like doing their own thing and partying and blah, blah, thinking. And I don't doubt there will be a future for you, but it will be created by somebody else. And all what we're saying is that, hey, you could create your own worlds. You can world build. Now you have the knowledge of how to build worlds. Now you don't even need unless you want to, right? That's another thing. So we're separating wants versus needs, because I do believe that we go to many of these YouTube channels just to be entertained. Like, it's like, yo, let me hear what this knucklehead. Oh my goodness, I can't believe he said that. It's just a shame when it becomes, if they're talking about the other person and then one loses, like it's a gladiator ring or something, right? But what we want to make sure of is, and that's what we said in the beginning, if you don't see the portal, be the portal. But making sure that if somebody comes to a certain level of awareness and they want to go further, that there is a way that they can do that isn't like blocked and full of a bunch of traps. Okay. So let me see here. Somebody said last question. Oh, okay. Somebody's asking, can the 64 hexagrams be added? The way of changes. Like, this is all good stuff. Like anything, because the 64 hexagrams is the 8x8, it's the chessboard, it's the cause and the effect, and it's the sequence of the cause and effect over time. Mapping out, it's like touring through decision making, etc. All that kind of stuff is golden for data sets, because this is the kind of things that creates facts. What's the most comprehensive way to have access to all of this being offered? I believe personally in ambassador training, because it's not just any of this. It's the whole thing, mainly the tribe and the connection. So every other strong, we come in just on tribe vibes. There's Wednesday, there's Creators Club, there's Cosmic Law, there's the tribe getting together in chats. There's Costa Rica. So it's if you're asking me what I think is the best way, I think the total integration. But what I've also fun to do, or what they say work, what I've also fun to do is create things that can interoperate, but also can operate standalone. Because if you didn't notice, there are some people who want to utilize certain things, but they don't want some other things. They may be like, I'm a Christian. So it's just like, that doesn't work for them. So we try to make sure that it's a gradual process. And if you choose to use certain things, it's because you made a choice, not because we just pushed it on you. Someone is asking, can we get Sybil to end slavery and eventually bring in egalitarianism? Real talk on that answer. What slavery are you talking about other than the slavery of the mind? See, no longer can one person really save another person because they're trapped in their own mind. Like, think about every single day that you wake up, you can go and do some wild stuff. It could take a process. Everything takes time. So you could start going to this library, start reading about a certain thing, like maybe CAD, maybe something like that. And to a point where, boom, you master it. You put the time in, and then now you get a chance to move on to something else. So technically, though, if the being doesn't have the mind, they think, oh man, I can't. They hold me down. They hold me back. And that's all in your mind. So these are the times where, especially now, like they didn't put the power glove in everybody's hand. Now, if you're still over there, like, I can't, it's because you're being directly affected by the hypnosis and the reality that was designed to allow you to self-destruct, because they had an expiration date for that particular mindset and that particular way of being. You see what I mean? And so we have inherited some rather toxic ways of thinking, and also that have come about through abuse and prolonged bad decision making, which passes on generations. This is the main thing. It's like, it's not just decisions you made. There's an hereditary inheritance. This is why you will do things that your parents do or move like they move. And they be like, man, he do that just like me, suck his thumb, whatever. And what happens is that would let you already know, common sense, hey, we're passing something. And that what we're passing at times becomes like a bill. It becomes like a debt bill of bad decisions, and we pass it on to our children. So this is also why it's good to get into this quantum thinking, this quantum healing, this quantum level of really enhancing yourself. That's what's really dissolving your balance, right? That the overdue balance that has happened with this energetic engagement that you've been participating in the yin yang reality, right? So it's real stuff. It's all hard coded. This is what happens. And when you change those dynamics, you start getting lighter. You start actually seeing things free themselves up. You start getting out of the flux zone, the jinx zone, and all of those areas where, you know, you're more constricted and more confined. This is what I've been seeing, and this is like what I've been living, and this is what I've been able to prove as a fact. Right. So I like standing on those factual components and foundations because they do allow you to reach into the next thing without slipping and falling. Right. All right. So I think that we're at it. I wanted to, again, give thanks for everybody that showed up, offer you to go ahead and take a look at what we have. You can wait until it launches. That's great. And if you want to join in today, we're already having a great time. And we will notify as things go live. So, yeah, I know it's hard to say goodbye. So we won't. Wholeness.